There's a man moving through the desert like a thought that cannot be contained. The air is dry, the horizon endless, and the land feels ancient, older than history, older than guilt. Yet something new is being imagined here, something so immense it cannot yet be named without trembling. His name is J. Robert Oppenheimer. To the world, he will become a symbol. To himself, he is something far less stable. A brilliant mind, sharp as glass. A man who speaks softly, as though even his own ideas might overhear him. In the early years, we meet him not as a legend, but as a young physicist with restless eyes. He listens more than he talks. He absorbs the world like a wound. In Europe, among the great scientific thinkers of the age, he is surrounded by equations that feel almost holy. Atoms, particles, invisible forces, tiny truths that shape everything. But beneath his brilliance, there is something unsettled. Oppenheimer is not only curious, he is haunted by curiosity. There is an intensity in him that borders on self-destruction, a hunger to understand what lies at the foundation of reality, even if reality breaks apart in the process. And slowly, the world begins to change around him. The 1930s bring more than scientific progress. They bring political tremors, ideologies spreading like smoke, fear moving quietly through nations. Oppenheimer watches it all with the distant expression of a man who knows history is accelerating. He teaches, he inspires. People are drawn to him. Students look at him as if he is a doorway into the future. But even then, he is difficult to fully know. His personal life is complicated, threaded with longing and instability. Jean Tatlock enters like a storm. She is brilliant, passionate, emotionally fierce. With her, conversations are never casual, they are confessions, confrontations, awakenings. She challenges him, not just intellectually, but morally. And Oppenheimer, for all his genius, seems strangely fragile beside her, as if the mind that can hold the universe cannot always hold itself. Their relationship is intense, unfinished, full of unsaid things. And somewhere behind them, the world is darkening, because across the ocean, Germany is moving towards something unspeakable. Hitler's shadow stretches across Europe, and the scientific community begins to understand something chilling. Physics is no longer just knowledge. It is power. A rumor begins to spread through laboratories and universities like a quiet infection. What if the Nazis build a bomb first? Not a bomb of steel and fire, but of atoms. A weapon that would not simply destroy armies, but erase cities. Suddenly, science feels less like discovery and more like a countdown. Oppenheimer is pulled into the center of this new reality, not because he is the loudest, but because he is the sharpest. The US government begins to gather minds, physicists, mathematicians, engineers, people who can see beyond ordinary limits. And soon, a man named General Leslie Groves arrives. Groves is the opposite of Oppenheimer. Solid, military, practical. A man of logistics and certainty. He does not speak in metaphors. He speaks in outcomes. And when he looks at Oppenheimer, he does not see a poet of physics. He sees a necessary risk, because Groves needs someone who can lead the impossible. Someone who can hold chaos together long enough to create something unimaginable. So Oppenheimer is chosen, and the choice feels like a door closing. He's taken to Los Alamos, a remote stretch of desert where the sky feels too wide, too indifferent, a place that will become both cradle and grave for a new era. Here, the Manhattan Project begins. The world's greatest scientific minds arrive one by one, like pieces being assembled for a machine no one truly understands. There is excitement, yes, but it is not innocent excitement. It is the energy of people standing near the edge of something irreversible. Oppenheimer walks among them, composed, but internally, something is shifting. He is no longer just exploring nature. He is engineering fate. Men work day and night. Equations become obsessions. Time becomes pressure. The desert becomes a sealed universe where only one question matters. Can it be done? And beneath that, Should it be done? But no one asks the second question out loud. Not yet. Because war does not leave space for philosophy. Only urgency. Only fear. Only momentum. Oppenheimer becomes the center of it all. He speaks with quiet authority. He inspires loyalty. Even Groves, the hardened general, begins to trust him. But trust is a strange thing here, because while the project races forward, the government watches him closely. His past political associations whisper behind him like ghosts. Friends who attended communist meetings, a brother involved in activism, a lover with radical beliefs. Oppenheimer is a man building the ultimate weapon while standing under suspicion, and this contradiction tightens around him. A noose made of both genius and doubt. At Los Alamos, life becomes surreal. Scientists laugh at lunch, then return to calculations that could end the world. Young men fall in love, get married, have children. Beneath the looming presence of what they are creating, it is almost unbearable. The normalcy beside the apocalypse, and he carries it quietly. Sometimes, late at night, he stares into the desert darkness, as if listening for something. Not an enemy, not a spy, but a future that is already approaching. The bomb is no longer theoretical. It is becoming real. Metal is shaped. Plutonium is handled like cursed gold. The air itself feels tense, charged with secrets. And in the middle of it all, Oppenheimer begins to realize something terrible. This is not just a weapon. This is a threshold. Once crossed, there is no returning to the old world. Still, the work continues, because stopping would mean confronting what has already been unleashed. And perhaps that is the deepest trap of all. One day, the calculations align. The pieces come together. The scientists begin to speak in quieter voices. The first test approaches. A name is chosen. Trinity. A strangely beautiful word for something that will tear the sky apart. On the eve of the test, the desert holds its breath. Men who have spent years chasing this moment now feel something unfamiliar. Fear. Not of failure, but of success. Oppenheimer stands at the edge of history, watching the final preparations. His face is calm, but his eyes suggest a man staring into something vast and unknowable. Because tomorrow, they will find out what happens when humanity touches the fire of creation. And as the night deepens, one question lingers unspoken in the desert air. What if the world is never the same after the light? The desert is still, not peaceful. Just waiting. Before dawn, men stand in silence, their breath faint in the cold air. The sky above Los Alamos is vast, indifferent, as if it has watched countless civilizations rise and fall without ever blinking. But this morning is different, because this morning, something is about to be born that does not belong entirely to nature or to humanity. Oppenheimer watches from a distance. He is surrounded by military officials, scientists, technicians, yet he feels alone in a way that is difficult to explain, because no one else is carrying the same invisible weight. The knowledge that if this works, the world will never return to innocence. The countdown begins, numbers spoken softly. Seconds, stretching unnaturally long. Some men pray. Others joke, nervously, as if humor might protect them. Oppenheimer says nothing. His mind, so brilliant, so disciplined, is strangely quiet. And then light. Not like sunlight, not like fire. This is something else. A sudden white bloom that seems to rip open the horizon. For a moment, it feels less like an explosion and more like the birth of a star. The sky itself is violated. A towering cloud rises, slow and majestic, like a god waking up. Sound arrives later, delayed, as though even thunder is hesitant to follow. The ground shakes. The men stare, stunned. Some cheer. Some simply whisper, unable to process what they have witnessed. And Oppenheimer, he does not celebrate. His face is unreadable, because in that light, he has seen something beyond triumph. He has seen consequence. A line from ancient scripture surfaces in his mind, uninvited. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. It is not a boast. It is a confession. The test is successful. The weapon is real, and success, in that moment, feels like a kind of mourning. Not long after, the war demands completion. Trinity was only the beginning. The bomb must now be used. Oppenheimer is pulled into meetings, briefings, discussions about targets and strategy. Words like necessary and inevitable fill the air, as if morality can be reduced to logistics. Then August arrives. Hiroshima, a city erased in seconds. Tens of thousands vanish into ash and shadow. And 3 days later, Nagasaki. The world watches from afar, stunned, unable to comprehend what has happened. Victory is declared. The war ends. But something else begins, because the weapon has introduced a new kind of fear. Not fear of armies, but fear of existence itself. Oppenheimer returns to America as a hero. Photographs are taken. Hands are shaken. Speeches are given. People look at him as if he has saved them. But inside him, something is unraveling. At one celebration, applause fills a room. Faces glow with admiration. Yet Oppenheimer's eyes drift, distant. He imagines the light again. The heat. The body. The silence afterward. He hears the cheering, and it sounds almost unbearable, because he understands something the crowd does not. This is not an ending. This is an opening. The atomic age is not a trophy. It is a door to an abyss. Soon, the political atmosphere shifts. The alliance of wartime begins to rot into suspicion. The Cold War emerges like a slow frost. The Soviet Union is no longer an ally. It is a mirror enemy. And now that the bomb exists, it must be surpassed. Bigger, faster, more devastating. The hydrogen bomb enters conversation, a weapon beyond imagination. Oppenheimer, once the architect of atomic fire, begins to resist. He speaks carefully, but firmly. He warns of escalation. He urges restraint, but restraint is not a language. Governments speak fluently. His opposition makes him dangerous, not because he is wrong, but because he is inconvenient. The hero becomes a problem. And in America, problems are investigated. A security hearing is arranged, not in a courtroom, not with justice, but in a closed room filled with quiet hostility. Oppenheimer sits under harsh lights, facing men who already seem to have decided what he is. They ask about his past, his associations, his friendships, his lover. He doubts. They peeled through his life, like prosecutors searching for betrayal. But what they are truly punishing is not espionage. It is conscience. Because Oppenheimer has done something unforgivable in a world of power, he has begun to regret. And regret is a form of resistance. The questioning becomes relentless, humiliating, a slow dismantling. His private life is dragged into the open. Jean Tatlock's memory lingers like a wound. Her death, tragic and unresolved, haunts him still. Kitty, his wife, watches with fury, seeing her husband reduced from legend to suspect. And Oppenheimer, he endures. Not because he believes the process is fair, but because he knows something even darker. Once you give the world a weapon, the world no longer needs you. It only needs what you created. The hearing concludes. His security clearance is revoked. Officially, he is no longer trusted. The man who built the bomb is cast out of the inner circle, not executed, not imprisoned, just erased. A quieter punishment, a symbolic exile. And perhaps that is the cruelest part, because Oppenheimer is left alive, to live with what he has done. Years pass. The world continues forward. Nuclear weapons multiply. The arms race accelerates. The shadow of annihilation becomes permanent. Oppenheimer grows older, thinner, quieter. His brilliance remains, but it is tempered now by something heavier than intellect, awareness. In one final moment of recognition, the government offers him an award. A gesture of apology, perhaps a way too tidy history. He accepts it politely, but the apology cannot undo what has been unleashed, because some inventions cannot be uninvented, some doors cannot be closed, and some men cannot escape the fire they helped ignite. Oppenheimer walks through his later years like a man listening to an echo that never fades. Not the echo of the explosion, but the echo of the question that followed. What have we done? And perhaps that is the lasting tragedy. Not that humanity discovered the atom's secret, but that it discovered it before it discovered its own wisdom. Because the bomb was not only a scientific breakthrough, it was a mirror, reflecting back the terrifying truth that the power to destroy the world has always been inside us.